Welcome back to the series of lectures on the first half of Western Civ. We've been talking about Greece the past couple of lectures. We talked about the Greek city-states, Athens and Sparta. We talked about the wars of classical Greece. Today I want to talk just for a few minutes about Alexander the Great. The context here, I suppose, would be the Greek Empire, the spreading of Hellenistic culture. Hellenistic pertains to Greece. Significance. This is another one of those instances in ancient history where East and West meet and commingle, spreading trade goods, spreading culture, religion, on and on and on. Again, this does not happen that often, so when it does, we make note of it. And of course, the other significance is that Greek or Hellenistic culture is spread throughout Asia Minor, North Africa, Palestine, deep into Southwest Asia, all the way to Afghanistan, the Indus rivers. Let's characterize Alexander for a moment. He's the son of King Philip of Macedonia, a very successful leader and military general. His mother was Olympias, who claimed that she had descended from Achilles. Alexander was especially interested in Achilles, and it's no wonder, being a great Greek military hero and part of the family. You've all heard of Aristotle. He was Alexander's tutor. Can you imagine? One of the great thinkers in history is your personal tutor. Of course, Alexander grew up within sight of Mount Olympus. This was the home of the Greek gods. So Alexander's upbringing is pervasive in the sense of mythology, Greek deities being a part of his family, being within sight of his homeland there at Mount Olympus. Personal characteristics, he's described as a man having great energy. He needs a little sleep. He's a heavy drinker, though abstemious in his eating habits. He's described as very handsome and charismatic. He promoted shaving for his soldiers so that their enemy could not grab them by the beards and immobilize them. Alexander, of course, was a practicing pederast. He had male and female lovers. He had a number of wives, but apparently the love of his life was Hesphaestus, who was a man. He was a devoted student. He was an expert horseman. He's generally regarded as one of the finest military officers in history, a military genius. He was a pagan, of course, as were all people at this time. A number of rituals that he would perform before battle, a number of superstitions. He's described as having a somewhat volatile temper. This may have run hand in hand with his excessive drinking. He's described as being a fine musician and a great orator, a man capable of moving the soldiers with the spoken word. And of course, he's dead at a very early age, at 33. He dies in Baghdad, of all places, in 323 before the Common Era. I've heard different accounts of his death. Excessive drinking and a fever together may have done him in. Just to characterize Alexander's career, he conquers Greece. He overwhelms the Greek city-states in 336 BCE, and then immediately sets out to conquer Persia in 334. At the Battle of Issus, he first defeats the Persians, led by Darius III, the Persian emperor. Afterwards, he turns south and conquers Lebanon, what we think of today as Israel, and then extends into northeast Africa and overruns Egypt and part of the northern rim of Africa. He then turns and goes east again and defeats the Persians at a large battle at Gaugamela. He conquers Babylon in 331 BCE. He extends further eastward, overruns all of Persia, and attempts to subdue Afghanistan. This was not quite as successful. Crosses into India in 327 BCE, and there the Greek army begins to break down a bit. They're overextended. They've been fighting a long time. They're not sure. I think they begin to lose confidence in Alexander's judgment. Alexander himself, of course, admired the Persian culture, and I think wanted to create some sort of a combination of Greek and Persian culture. And I think that his soldiers began to get homesick after extending thousands of miles eastward all the way to the Indus River. Some consequences of Alexander. Again, he sees himself as sort of the monarch of a great Greek-Persian empire. He marries the daughter of Darius III, the Persian emperor. And of course, he encourages his generals to marry the daughters of the Persian nobility as well. This again is an attempt to blend these two cultures. Alexander announces his own divinity as the son of Zeus. So to reiterate, the presence of the Greek myths in Alexander's life is very real. I said earlier, just a moment ago, that his army became increasingly discontented at Alexander's ongoing campaigns in distant Afghanistan and distant India. Seemed to be a never-ending military campaign. Of course, many of these Greek soldiers began to wonder if they would ever return home. Alexander, of course, ushered in what we today would call the Hellenistic Age. That is the great spreading of Greek culture across Southwest Asia, North Africa, and what today we'd call Palestine or Israel. And of course, if you remember, we talked about the Hebrews, and then of course early Christianity. You'll see that the New Testament, of course, is written in Greek. This is one of the consequences of Alexander's conquest of Palestine. Alexander united trade in the Eastern Mediterranean world, created a trade circuit there, quite profitable for many. And then, of course, upon his death, Alexander's empire is divided up among his generals. And these separate kingdoms will survive until they themselves are overrun by the Romans, and then in the Eastern empires overrun again by the Persians. So that's just a quick introduction to Alexander and his significances. I'm going to stop there and we'll pick it up next time. Thank you.